I'm going to tell you the dream now. At the beginning of the dream, or at least this is the first thing I remember about the dream, I was driving a car. And I think I was in Los Angeles or a similar city. And my dad was in the passenger seat of the car. Then I hear police sirens, and I look in the rear view mirror, and I see a cop car behind me with its lights flashing. And I figured that I must have screwed up somehow, like I must have run a red light or something like that. So I pull over. But the only place I can pull over is an empty construction site. So I pull into the empty construction site, and I park my car, and then I get out of my car, I get down on my knees, and I put my hands behind my head and wait for the cop. And while I'm there on my knees, I realize, wait a second. When you get pulled over, you're not supposed to do that. You're just supposed to wait in your car. What am I doing? You're not supposed to get down on your knees and put your hands behind your head unless the cop tells you to or something. But now I realize it would be weird if I just stood up and got back in my car after I went through the trouble of getting out and all that. So I decide I'm just going to stay there. I'm just going to stay there on my knees, looking like an idiot. So four men get out of the cop car, and two of them are cops, but the other two are not cops. One of the cops is this tall, blonde man. He's like the main character of the dream. He's going to be there for the rest of the dream. The other cop was this, I don't know how else to describe him. He was a short, fat Mexican guy. And the other two men looked like stereotypical criminals, like bad guys. That's what they look like. Or like my mental image of what a criminal bad guy is supposed to look like. So the blonde cop had a shotgun, and he's prodding the two criminals with the shotgun, poking them, like he wants them to stand in a specific spot. And I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here? Did he pull me over, or is this about them? What should I leave? What is going on here? And the cops are completely ignoring me. They're only focusing on these two criminals. And the cop with the shotgun, he says something like, I wish I knew word for word exactly what he said, but he said something like, if I turn you in, you're going to go to court, get a prison sentence from a judge, and spend years in a cell. But that wouldn't be justice. Animals like you deserve worse than that. The law isn't going to give you the punishment you really deserve. So instead, I'm going to be the judge. I'm going to carry out justice. And then he fires his shotgun at one of the criminal's feet and blows off all of his toes. And the guy screams in pain. And then he says something like, no, don't let me live the rest of my life like this. But it seemed like such a stupid thing to say because it was too late. His toes were already gone. So I'm still there on the ground, kneeling with my hands behind my head. And my dad is still in the car. And I'm wondering, do I have anything to do with what's going on right now? Should I just leave? The cop with the shotgun walks over to us. And he tells us to get away from the car and to start moving some pieces of wood that are lying on the ground nearby. And I don't think a cop just has the authority to start giving random orders to a civilian. But me and my dad aren't going to fuck with this guy because he has a shotgun and he just shot somebody. He obviously, he's like a loose cannon who doesn't play by the rules. So we're just going to do what he says because we don't want to get hurt. So my dad gets out of the car and I get up and we go over to the wood and then we push it to the side. And underneath the wood, there's a pit. And you might think the cop is going to dump the two criminals into the pit. But it wasn't anything like that. The cop goes back to his patrol car and he gets two cages out of the trunk of his car. And inside of the cages are two roosters with razor blades attached to their talons. And he dumps the roosters into the pit. And then they start fighting. It's a cockfight. And then a crowd of people shows up. and they start cheering and betting money on which rooster is going to win the cockfight. And then one rooster wins, and the cop gets a bunch of money from all the people who bet on the loser, and then the crowd leaves. And, and this entire time, I guess they're all just ignoring the guy with his foot blown off. And then the cop tells me and my dad to drive home. So I'm like, good, I want to get out of here. So we get in the car and we start to drive away. And I look behind me and I see that the cop, the one with the shotgun, is following us in his patrol car. But his partner and the two criminals aren't with him. I guess he just left them there in the construction site. So the cop follows me and my dad all the way home. We go to this house that like I've never even lived in. Like that's not a house I've ever I've lived in like 3 houses. That house didn't look anything like any house I've ever lived in. In my dream, I lived in some fictional location. But anyway, when we arrive at the house, the cop walks up to us and he tells us, go inside the house. We don't know what the hell he wants, but we know he's like a dangerous guy who like shoots people and holds cockfights. So we just do whatever he tells us to do. And he follows us into our house. And then he tells us to start removing the floorboards of the floor of our house. And so we just do what he says because he's the one with the shotgun. And it's exactly like back at the construction site. When we move the wooden floorboards, there's a pit underneath our house. And then he tells us he has a couple of wolves in the trunk of his cop car. And he's going to make the 2 wolves fight in this pit in our house. And then make money off of people betting on which wolf is going to win the fight. And I look in the pit and I panic because it's a really, really shallow pit. It's like knee high. And I know that if he lets 2 wolves out, they're not going to stay down there. They're just going to hop out. And they're going to start attacking people and they might attack me. Like, it would work if it was for another cockfight, like a rooster couldn't get out of there, but a wolf would have no fucking problem getting out of that pit. So then the cop leaves, I guess to go check on his wolves or something, and I jump into the pit with a shovel, and I start digging, trying to make the pit deeper so that the wolves can fight in there without a problem. But then my mom suddenly, like, arrives home. She must have been gone, and now she came home. And she's in a bad mood for some reason. And I know what's going to happen. I know that my mom is going to say something rude to the cop, and then the cop is going to shoot her with his shotgun because he's obviously a fucking psychopath. So I'm panicking, like worrying about what's going to happen. But then the cop starts using a vacuum cleaner to clean up the house. And he's pretending like he just came over to help out with chores. And my mom decides this isn't suspicious at all. And she just accepts the fact that there's a cop vacuuming in our house. So the crisis is averted. And after a little while of the cop, pretending he's just there to help with chores, he comes over to me. And then he says, "Hey kid, I really like you. Come with me. Let's go get steak together." And I don't know what to say. But I know that he could fuck me up with like a shotgun or roosters or wolves if he wanted to. So I just say, yeah, sure. Okay, let's go. And we leave the house. And by now it's nighttime. And so the 2 of us are walking around in a city at night. And then we meet these 2 women and the cop starts flirting with them. And then the women start walking around with us. Like it's an RPG and they joined our party or something. And the whole time I'm panicking because I know that it's only a matter of time until this psycho cop does something violent or illegal. So then he takes us to a steak restaurant. He takes us to a steak restaurant and then he orders donuts. And the restaurant serves us donuts. And I'm sitting there with donuts on my plate. And for some reason, I decide this is the perfect time to bring up my concerns with the guy. So I say to him, "Hey, man, about those wolves." And his eyes go wide. And he says, "Oh, that's right! The wolves! Yeah, they probably suffocated to death in that trunk by now. Oh well." And then I got a phone call in real life, so I woke up and the dream ended. And that's the story. That's the story I wanted to tell you. I hope you enjoyed it.